Hi everyone, I hope everyone's doing okay. I hope you're not watching too much TV, and I hope you're reading, practicing your writing, even though you're probably not. I'm still going to be hopeful. Also, I hope you're ready to learn, because today we're going to be talking about the color wheel. We're going to start with getting our materials. We don't need a lot, but we are going to need paper, a pencil, a pen, or a marker, coloring pencils, or crayons if you have any. And if you don't, it's okay. You can just write the name of the colors we're going to be going over instead. Okay, before we get too much into this, I'm going to explain the color wheel a little bit before we start. So the color wheel is divided into 3 sections: primary colors, secondary colors, and tertiary colors. The last one's a little hard to say, so let's say it again. Tertiary colors. Tertiary colors. A little bit better, but not too great, but it's okay. Today, I'm going to be explaining each of the sections of the color wheel, and I'll tell you which colors are made using the other colors. Before we get ahead of ourselves, let's go ahead and start with setting up our paper. I started off by writing primary colors on the top of the page, and since I can't draw a circle, I'm going to use squares instead. You can go ahead and draw a circle or squares, but I think squares might be a little easier, but it's up to you. Underneath where it says primary colors, I'm going to draw 3 squares big enough so I can color in. Your paper should now look like this. Alright, if your paper looks like that, we can go ahead and move on. There are 3 squares because there are 3 primary colors: red, yellow, and blue. Primary colors are also called true colors. They are called true colors because they can't be made from any other colors. They're like the starting point, pretty much. Primary colors are actually used to make the rest of the colors in the color wheel. Now that we know our 3 primary colors, we can go ahead and color the 3 squares in. So I colored my first square red, my second square yellow, and my third square blue. It doesn't really matter the order. As long as you write down which color is which, you should be fine. Now let's look at our color wheel. If we look closely, you can see that the coloring wheel is already labeled. Let's go ahead and look on the color wheel for the 3 primary colors. Alright, so we already went over the red, we already went over yellow, and we already went over blue. So we can go ahead and check those off. Now that we're done with our primary colors, we can go ahead and move on to our secondary colors. On our piece of paper, we're going to go ahead and write secondary colors beneath our primary colors. Go ahead and make 3 squares big enough so you can go ahead and color in. Leave space on top and below because you're going to be writing the name of the color and the 2 colors that were used to make it. This is how your paper layout should be. Secondary colors are made when you mix 2 of the primary colors. There are a total of 3 secondary colors. Let's start with our first secondary color, orange. You get orange by mixing red and yellow. Our secondary color is going to be green. Green is made when you mix yellow and blue. Our third secondary color is going to be violet, but it's also called purple. Violet is made when you mix red and blue. Now that we know our secondary colors, we can go ahead and start coloring in our squares. Don't forget to write the name of the color on top and the 2 primary colors that were used to make it below. Your paper should look like this. Now that we've covered all of our secondary colors, we can go ahead and check them off of the color wheel. Now will you look at that? We're almost done. We only have the tertiary colors left. There are a total of 6 tertiary colors. So now we're going to go ahead and set up our paper for the tertiary colors. There are the last 6 colors on the color wheel. If you have enough space on the same piece of paper, you can keep working on that same piece of paper. But if you don't, you can grab another piece of paper. We're going to go ahead and write tertiary colors on top. The setup, this one is going to be a little bit different because we're going to go ahead and write down the name of one of the primary colors. So I went ahead and I wrote down red, and then I made 2 squares right next to that. So your paper should look like this. And I did the same thing for yellow and for blue. So now your paper should look like this. Tertiary colors are made when we mix one primary color with one secondary color. The primary color has to be one of the 2 primary colors that was used to make the secondary color. I know that seems a little confusing, but once I explain the first one, I think you'll understand what I mean. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start with red. Red is used to make 2 secondary colors, orange and violet. So that means that red is also used to make 2 tertiary colors. When we mix red with orange, we get red-orange, and that's one of the tertiary colors. And when we mix red with violet, we get our next tertiary color, red-violet. I think you're understanding how this works. Alright, so now that we've learned the 2 tertiary colors that are made from red, we can go ahead and start coloring those squares. For the red-orange, I used my orange coloring pencil first and lightly colored in the box. Then I went over that with the red coloring pencil, and just like that, I made red-orange. If you want your colors to be a little bit brighter, just keep going over it, alternating the colors. So pretty much orange, then red, then orange, then red, until you get however darkness or brightness you want. For the red-violet, I started off with the violet coloring pencil and lightly colored in the box, and then went over that with the red. And just like that, red-violet. Don't forget to write the name of the color above the squares, or below, whichever works best. Alright, now we're done coloring and labeling, so your paper should look like this. Now let's go ahead and start with our yellow set. So yellow is used to make the secondary colors green and orange. So we're gonna go ahead and mix yellow with green and then yellow with orange. So when we mix yellow and green, we get the tertiary color yellow-green. Our next tertiary color is made when we mix yellow and orange, and we get yellow-orange. All right, so now that we know the 2 tertiary colors that are made when we use yellow, we're gonna go ahead and start coloring. For yellow-green, I started off coloring the box with the green coloring pencil, and then I went over it with the yellow. For the yellow-orange, I started coloring the box with orange, and then I went over it with the yellow. Don't forget to label them. Your paper should now look like this. And now we're on our last set, the blue set of tertiary colors. Blue is used to make the secondary colors, violet and green. As you can imagine, we're gonna go ahead and mix those. So when we mix blue with violet, we get blue-violet, and that's one of the tertiary colors. Our next tertiary color is gonna be made when we mix blue and green. and we get blue-green. I bet you guessed that one. Alright, so now we can go ahead and start coloring the last two squares and labeling them. For blue-violet, I colored in the box with violet first, and then I added blue. For the color blue-green, I went ahead and started coloring in the square with blue, and then I went over it with green. Again, if you want your colors to be brighter, add more layers of the colors. Alright, so now that you're done coloring and labeling, your paper should now look like this. Now we're done with the whole color wheel. We went over the primary colors, which are red, yellow, and blue. We went over our secondary colors, orange, green, and violet. And we went over our tertiary colors, red, orange, red, violet, yellow, green, yellow, orange, blue, violet, and blue, green. And look, we're all done. It wasn't even that hard, I bet. The coloring might have been, staying in the lines, because I can't do that. You can tell. But it's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just proud we made it. We finished. For next week, we're going to go ahead and talk about the hues and the tones of colors and the different types of color schemes that you get using the color wheel. All right. Bye, guys.